This is the Seattle Overload podcast. I'm your host, Matty F. Brown, and I'm joined by Ty Dane Gonzalez. Our usual Griffin, third member, he's not here. And that may be a common theme for this section of the show. What day is it going out? Thursday.
Mm.
Which is going to be more of a kind of newsy roundup, get some takes off, hang out, talk Seahawks, less intense X's and O's, but also a chance for Ty to have a bit more of a chat. Not that he doesn't, but we sometimes talk over him and get really nerdy and leave him out. So the Seahawks still won. That's great, Ty.
Yeah. We're here on Wednesday recording, and it turns out the Seahawks still won that football game on Monday night. Crazy, insane. Still haven't fully processed the fact that happened. But it's amazing. Got to tell you that. Love that. So yeah, very excited to be on here and to talk some Hawks tonight. And we're doing a live stream for those that are maybe listening after the fact. We're doing a live stream on YouTube, so some of you also unhinged Seahawks fans can come and chat with us, leave your comments. Maybe we'll answer some questions. We got some topics to get into, but yeah. How are you, Matty?
Well, I'm obviously very happy because the Seahawks still won, and the narrative coming out of Denver is still kind of wild, and Nathaniel Hackett's admitted that it was wrong, and then it's like, well, why did they have that weird press conference where they were talking about, and why did the kicker tweet out the 46 left hash thing? And that's all very strange, but whatever, not our problem. Fun memes, fun reactions. Twitter was unbelievable. The takes. But yeah.
And it kind of seems like the national narrative is switching up on the Seahawks a little bit as well, right? Like turning on ESPN on Tuesday morning, tuning on like Pat McAfee show, some of these bigger shows that cover the NFL. And we're hearing Geno praise. We're hearing, you know what? Maybe this team, they're building a little something special, right? Like you hear like Louis Riddick and these guys coming out now and saying like, you know what? Maybe maybe the Seahawks got a little something going on here. After I don't know, we spent the last 5 months hearing that the Seahawks are going 0-17. They're gonna get the first pick. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, whoever is going to be the Seahawks quarterback next year, whatever. But it's I think at the end of the day, though, I think it's great that Geno is getting his due, that people are recognizing that. I've heard some really, positive things from, just from shows that I've watched and radio and all that stuff, actually giving Geno his due. That's awesome, and recognizing like, hey, this guy hasn't really gotten a chance in a long time. And he kind of got screwed out of his last chance. And now he's back on the field and he's making it happen. It's awesome. It's awesome. Good for Geno. Everyone's going with the quote too. That's awesome. So that's been a whole thing. So it's really cool to see the Seahawks are garnering some attention now, and people are taking notice. People are taking notice of what we've been talking about for months, Matty. They've taken notice to Geno. Everyone is getting irreversibly Geno pilled now.
Definitely fun having the Seahawks be that kind of gritty, spicy, action green underdog where for a while, with Russell Wilson, it was always, well, did they underperform that year? Did they miss the boat? And you can talk about that more seriously, but now we don't have to sort of think about that. It's kind of like, well, they just beat the Broncos. That was fun, and no one expected them to. And you talk about the national narrative shifting. Well, actually, you look at the NFL.com picks, and all but one of them have picked the 49ers. They're a 9.5 underdog on the road in San Francisco. So, well, Santa Clara. And so all of that being said, I think there is some warming up to the Seahawks, and I think people like that kind of Pete Carroll thing, and the vibe around the team, and Geno proving people wrong. That's quite a cool story, and I think people are willing to embrace that. Nonetheless, though, I do still think there's a bit of a sentiment against the Seahawks as a quality team, and questioning their quality to even compete against the 49ers, who are, I mean, the confidence in Trey Lance, and we'll talk about this tomorrow when we preview that game. But the confidence in Trey Lance is, I have yet to see where that is really coming from. But perhaps I'll be proved wrong. But to see, all but one of them pick the 49ers, and to see, them be a 9.5.
There was one prediction in there that said 40-16 49ers. I don't think that we'll talk about this tomorrow. I don't think Trey Lance has scored 40 points on this defense. Like that would have to be like something just absolutely terrible goes wrong. There's got to be like 2 pick sixes or like a fumble recovery touchdown or something crazy like that. Like there's no way. Yeah, but so there's still obviously the disrespect in that regard, right, from the national side of things.
Keep it coming. This team will feed off that, man.
I mean, dude, the Seahawks are at their absolute best when they're underdogs, like when no one, believes in them. And, it's been a while now since we've really seen a Seahawks team that truly has a chip on its shoulder, where guys have, truly have a chip on their shoulder. And, Shelby Harris, right? Like the interview that he did after the game, like that was very like, Seahawks in 2013 when no one really was paying attention yet. And, they were playing great ball, but, just no one was really giving them their due. We're kind of back to that kind of style of Seahawk football under Pete Carroll, where these guys, they truly, they're out to prove people wrong. And, so yeah, keep down them, and hopefully they shock the world again on Sunday and beat the 49ers. That would be a lot of fun, and it would help drive the most juiciest narratives even further. After they drive the juiciest narratives for Denver, they drive even more juicy narratives for the 49ers. There will be so many calls for Jimmy Garoppolo if they beat Trey Lance. So many calls for Jimmy Garoppolo. It'll be beautiful.
Yeah, well, that is a weird situation. I mean, I understand that Jimmy G is thought of highly there as a locker room presence and a great guy, but like, if you're Trey Lance, you'd be like, can this guy go now? I don't want this lingering over me. It's like Manchester United. Their longtime great coach, Sir Alex Ferguson, he retired after many wins. But rather than like leave the club, he just moved upstairs, and he's sort of lurking in the shadows, and still is right to this day. But like particularly in the sort of early transition from Ferguson, he was just sort of lingering there, and it would just be uncomfortable to be a manager in that setting, or in this case, a quarterback when you're the old vet who all of the locker room obviously loves, like. George Kittle, for instance, really vocal about him. I know Richard Sherman spoke highly of Garoppolo in the past as well. That's such a weird situation. Anyway, we will see how that all plays out. But yeah, Geno-wise, really still very exciting. And then defensive-wise, we have an award winner already after week 1. Like, what the heck?
I mean, like, I thought Uchenna Nwosu had a really good game on Monday night. I didn't think that he had a defensive player of the week type of game at first glance, but so that was a little surprising when I saw that today. I still haven't watched the tape, but like that, like he I mean, well deserved. First of all, like that, like he was a big part of those goal line stands. Obviously he was able to get into the backfield some, got the first sack on Russ. Like he had a big night, so that's awesome. And to kick off the year with the whole like issue for a while for folks with personnel wise from the defense is like they don't have an edge rusher, they don't have a lead dog. Well, week 1 they open up the season with the defensive player of the week being an edge rusher, the edge rusher that they added this offseason. It seems like, I mean, obviously it's week 1, but let's overreact a little bit anyway, because everyone's going to do it.
Yeah.
Seems like they got a little bit of a steal there in Uchenna. Like they're like, if this is any indication of what's to come from Uchenna Nwosu, like that's like for $10 million a year for the next 2 years.
He signed that kind of mid-tier deal, and it's like, like he knows the system, he sort of knows the scheme, but opposite Darryl Taylor, you're thinking this is by no means a guaranteed thing, and the sack production's not obviously going to be crazy high. You'd think, right? And to have, again, tape podcast will be tomorrow where we'll dive into all the tape stuff, but production wise, to have one sack, 3 pressures, 1 tackle for loss per Pro Football Reference. That's spicy. I do think the award sort of speaks to how many people watched Monday Night Football, and the kind of national exposure. That doesn't hurt, right? But he was big on that goal line stand as well. We should mention that he stood up, the running back, I think, and he just brought a level of activity that actually kind of outshone Darryl Taylor. And now Taylor was getting held like every other snap, and I think because he's lining up on the left, I think they were really kind of mush rushing him a bit more often. Again, tape podcast tomorrow. But Nwosu, awesome. Absolutely awesome. And good on him. Although even in his press conference, he did seem a bit like slightly surprised. But anyway, good for him. They all count.
We'll take it. I mean, hell, we will absolutely take that all day long, especially from an edge rusher in Seattle. When was the last time an edge rusher in Seattle won Defensive Player of the Week? Like, ever? Has that ever happened? I mean, like, has that happened within like the last 20 years?
Surely a Cliff Averill. Surely.
Like a Mike Bennett, maybe like Mike Bennett for the Saints Monday night game in 2013. Yeah, Frank Clark, maybe. Yeah. Let us know if any of you that are watching the live stream right now know if a Seahawks edge rusher has won NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Drop it in the comments. We'll throw it up here on the screen. So yeah. So how many pressures did he end up with? I think you were checking Pro Football Reference for that.
Yeah, I did mention that, Ty.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good podcasting.
Wow. That's the second time that I've done that in 2 episodes. Yeah.
It's almost like the statistics just don't get
it goes through one ear and out the other. I'm sorry,
I can read
buddy.
them slower if you want.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm sorry, buddy. All right. So so let's talk about Jamal Adams here, because I thought today was going to be the day that Pete said, year's done for Jamal. It's over.
Right.
Like, he's going to need surgery.
Right.
Instead, he says they're still unsure if that's going to be required. So let me just kind of start by asking you this before I forget. Is that like, if he's out for the year or out for like most of the season, is that the death of the 3 safety looks, or can Ryan Neal, Josh Jones, and Quandre Diggs all coexist on the same field?
It's the death of the 3 safety looks in the way that they were going to do it with Adams. They were going to do it, and again, tape podcast tomorrow, but they were going to do it. I'll stop saying that. They were going to do it where Adams was on the field with Josh Jones and Quandre Diggs, but they didn't have, and then they had 2 outside cornerbacks. So technically, Quandre Diggs is kind of the nickel, or Adams is kind of the nickel. And then up front, they're playing a bare front, so 5 down. So Adams is basically playing in the box like a linebacker. And then sometimes not doing that, depending on what coverage they're playing. Now, Josh Jones could probably play in the box a bit, but he's not Adams. But also, the reason you do that with Adams is so you can blitz him, right? And the way he can be like a passing down weapon as well is going to impact their passing down stuff, where, I mean, already like the play he got injured on, like that was awesome. That was like some kind of dime thing where Seattle will come out in dime plus. So with 3 safeties out in the field, 6 defensive backs, just as they have done in previous years, because that's how you do it. But you're not going to have the safety playing off a nose tackle, going into the A gap, like for the sack, because Jamal Adams is that kind of dude. But Josh Jones, Ryan Neal, they don't really have that. Well, they don't have nearly as much blitzing acumen. Although they're both solid blitzers, but they're not Adams pass rush kind of deal. So unfortunate. But I want to know what was your read on that Pete Carroll press conference, because I have a few sort of troubling takes. with the Adams comment, I should specify.
Yeah. See, because it's like it's weird with Pete and how he talks about injuries in general, right? We know how like he dodges kind of the answer at the end of the day and kind of dances around it and dances around the severity of everything, right? He'll be like, oh yeah, like I think this guy might be coming back next week, and the next week comes and is like out for the year. So like you never know. I think that there's still maybe some hope, or maybe it was cope. Maybe there was cope from Pete today that we saw with that answer, because like I don't know. You look at like the injury, right? Just the like him having to go on the cart, him kind of massaging the top of his knee and everything. That seems like a quad. That seems like a ACL. That seems like something that's a season ender, like for sure. Like I'd be stunned if Jamal comes back. So I don't know. Maybe they're just trying desperately to get a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh opinion, because he's such a big part of this whole puzzle, for this whole year. And so maybe that's just why. Maybe they're literally just going through like several different opinions before they actually just finally call it. I don't know though. It's hard to read with Pete, really. Because like why else, like what would be the reason other than that though to kind of delay the inevitable? What do you think?
My take is the opposite, and it is that I actually got the sense that I don't think this is what will happen, but I got the sense that maybe retirement it is a thing, because weighing up options, like seeing what to do here, like, and it's a unique or like injury, like it's a weird injury. I can't remember the exact term, but like this is such a weird kind of serious injury. It's in the quad part of it sounds like he's completely like destroyed it, and that's not great. And then mental health wise, having to come back again after being hurt constantly. I don't think, well, I am not Jamal Adams. I do not have insight into his brain, but that he'll probably be going through that kind of deliberation of it's natural. I think, like, is this meant to be with football, and can I go through another recovery? And also, like, will I be the same player after whatever surgery they're considering, with this being such a rare injury? Like, can I actually play football again? Because I don't know if we know that. And
That's true.
Pete Carroll's comments to me, that I don't think I think he was careful to be drawn into saying, anything definitive for that reason, because I think there is like a small, perhaps, likelihood that, it could be the end. And, hopefully not. And also hopefully Jamal is okay, like mentally and then physically and then as a football player.
Well, yeah, to your point, with, the language that Pete has been using to describe the injury, and if that is the case, that it is a very rare injury, it's something that's very serious, Jamal's probably got to feel like the universe is out for him, basically. It just kind of feels like you said, like, is this meant to be? Am I actually meant to play football at this point? Like, because it's just injury after injury after injury, and it's not just like, one like exclusive season ender per year. It's like multitude of injuries stacking up on top of one another over the last 3 years, right? Because like you go back to 2020, it's the fingers, it's the shoulder, it's and then the next year it's the shoulder and everything, and then now it's fingers again during training camp, then now it's a knee, and it's just like his whole body is just getting beat to hell. And yeah, like you said, it's like you got to wonder at that point, like, with a knee injury, like, am I ever going to be the same guy? Like, am I ever going to be able to provide that value that makes me Jamal Adams? Am I ever going to be Jamal Adams again? So yeah, I think, that messes with a player a lot. And, just the whole, like, having to go through rehab and, maybe, again, to your point, maybe Pete was hinting at something or retirement, or that maybe Jamal is thinking about retirement because and that's why they're unsure about surgery. Maybe he just doesn't want to have the surgery and he's just
I'm
done.
surprised Pete didn't get a follow up on that. I really am, and maybe the surgery is complicated. Like maybe there's no guarantees of it being successful or leading to being able to play football. All that stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunate as well because he's a terrific football player, and I do feel bad for him in a sense because he gets beaten around the head with the how much the assets the Seahawks gave up to acquire Adams, not his fault, and really, the tape which I've watched, he's been a fantastic football player in Seattle, barring a few kind of injury influenced mistakes. But they get amplified because of the whole weird narrative which has always just been warped because of the amount that Seattle gave up to go and get him. But yeah, thinking of Jamal because they it sucks.
And by the way, it's also not the Seahawks' fault in the trade either, right? Like we know the player that they thought that they were getting, and we've seen him play at a very high level. We've seen him play at the level that they thought he was going to be at. They didn't know that he was going to get injury after injury after injury after injury, right? Like they didn't know that. Sometimes you lose trades. Sometimes that just happens.
You can get into the values of what safety is. I believe it's growing in the league, especially with how it's transitioning to more middle field open looks. The safeties have really lent upon to make that work from back to front, front to back, and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But also, he's much more than a safety. And he's not. He's not a linebacker. It's so annoying when people say that because he can do safety aspects. He's just a chess piece, and his pass rush ability on top of that as well. He's just a completely unique player. So the whole value thing, I get it, but also it's a bit annoying. I still I'm interesting to know. They said they punted on that draft because of COVID, which was kind of fortuitous phrasing. I still want to sort of look back and see how that whole draft did. It'll be interesting sort of 2 years down the line how that all pans out. But really, year one NFL sack record for DB, and he did ignite the pass rush when they needed it most. If they'd put together a run, if they'd managed to get past Wolford and the Rams in the playoffs, and put together, gone to a Super Bowl, then suddenly it's worth it. But unfortunately, a lot of other things collapsed there, and Jamal himself got hurt. So,
anyway. By the way, we have an answer to our question.
Oh,
Michael Bennett in 2015 won Defensive Player of the Year, or Defensive Player of the Week, rather, against the 49ers. And then Frank Clark in Week 6, 2018. So thank you to Alexander Wheeler and
we're both
Battle Rap fan. So, yeah. This might be. I'm surprised Cliff never got one.
Yeah. He was, I guess...
I guess maybe he
piece.
Yeah, I guess maybe he never had a big volume game with the flashy stats where he get a strip sack and another sack on top of that, and I don't know. There's always always the very basic stats that get you those awards. So
right, I think his best game for the Seahawks was probably Super Bowl 48 as well. So
yeah. All right, so Ken Walker III, who had hernia surgery a few weeks ago, is apparently coming back. Pete announced on Seattle Sports.
The optimistic Pete Carroll.
Optimistic Pete Carroll.
He made sure to remind people of that in his press conference today to reporters.
So we're already backing up a little bit.
Yeah, he's spoken to a team doctor after the radio hit, and they've been like, "Hey Pete, you probably shouldn't have said that. It's not 100% to go. You do know that." He's like, "Oh yeah."
So, but if he does make his return this week, how many snaps do you think he'll get coming off of that injury?
Oh, well, there's the whole coming off the injury, and then there's also the fact that he's got Rashad Penny in front of him, and Penny is the workhorse. You know, he's the guy who should be getting most of the carries. I don't know. Like maybe a dozen. Like how much is worth doing? Like is Penny hot? Is Penny struggling? There's a lot of factors at play here. But if he's good to go, then use him. But you know, if he's good to go, he should be fully available. And then it comes down to all those factors I just spoke about. You know how well Penny's doing, and also what we saw last week. Multiple running backs in the backfield, little triple option looks. Maybe we see a bit of Penny and Walker on the field. Wow, that would be exciting and sort of a nice sort of diverse.
Could they do that with that full house pistol thing? Do some RPOs? Get a little sexy with it. You know,
they could definitely do that. They will do that.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty interesting. Plus, because like Penny's kind of like a bowling ball, right? So like, you could have him maybe line up as like a fullback, basically. By the way, is it his brother or his cousin that's the fullback? Elijah.
I think
Elijah
his
Penny.
brother.
It's his brother, right?
For the Giants,
right,
still, right?
So that's in the background too. Like,
yeah, he'll just call up his brother, be like, "Hey, how do I
chip someone?" Travis Homer also in there. 3 running back sets.
DJ Dallas just hitting people. Let's have 4 on the field.
Yeah, DJ Dallas playing tight end. Why not? Let's do it. But yeah, like I'm pretty excited to see like, and maybe that was, I don't know, like, because Penny didn't get a lot of action this summer. I kind of wonder if that also played into the fact that they didn't run much.
Oh, a bit of load management.
Little load management, because I mean, like, I don't know, like, I'm interested to see if Penny's carries increase this week.
I think they will. Like,
yeah,
Carroll said they didn't run him enough, and we were saying it too. Like, he got a nice dosage at the start, and then the offense did the disjointed thing in the second half, like in total. But where was the run game? Like they sort of went away from it and completely when it was it was still getting 4 yards to carry, albeit skewed by one big run. But like, Penny only getting 12 carries is crazy. I do think they'll lean on him more often in the 49ers game, and if they're leaning on Penny more often, maybe that should be more opportunities for Walker. If he does go, which Pete, you've promised us, Pete. We want to see our exciting rookie, who's very, very dynamic, and just seeing the way that those two will like bounce off each other, like complement each other. Like Penny's this huge, height, weight, speed, ridiculous gliding, but then Walker's like a smaller jitterbug version where he still has that home run threat ability and one cut ability, and they both thrive in wide zone and gap concepts, which the Seahawks, that's what they do. They do the wide zone, the mid zone, and then they do the duo crunch and maybe a bit of pulling, but not much pulling. Yeah.
So let's you want to answer some questions?
Yeah, let's get some questions.
We got some questions. All right. Ian wants to know, would you summarize Adams' play style as safety, inside linebacker, and rotational pass rusher? He's too small to really set the edge. Matty?
Well, yeah, he's not setting the primary edge, but he can set an edge as like a secondary force player, which is a safety, and he can do some inside linebacker elements, and he can be a rotational pass rusher. So I've always said he's a defensive weapon, but if you had to call him something, he's a safety. Like, there's this kind of preconception, kind of because of the Legion of Boom. The safeties are either a free safety, where the free safety used to be the guy who aligned on the flex side of the defense. So the flex side of the defense is the dude away from the tight end. Then the strong safety used to be the guy who aligned to the solid side, so the guy to the tight end. So rather than calling the free safety the weak safety, they called him the free safety, because we don't want someone to be weak if they're playing football. They're very strong.
Mm.
Anyway, where I'm going with that is then the Legion of Boom, everyone's thinking free safety is going to play single high in like cover 3, cover 1, that kind of deal, right?
Mm.
And then the strong safety is Cam Chancellor. He's in the box. But no one called Cam Chancellor a linebacker. Like, why did we suddenly go from, okay, we have a box safety, and then, oh, it's a linebacker? But like Adams was great playing in quarters coverage last year for the Seahawks. Just no one noticed him because he's doing his job in too high, and it's not that flashy because the ball doesn't get thrown there. The quarterback sees him on the backside. They're like, okay, I won't throw that way, and then it goes on. But he's doing like backside free safety kind of elements. He's playing safety, like yeah. It's just cool that he has the kind of, you know, blitzing ability, but then, you know, Troy Polamalu could blitz and everyone called him a bloody safety. So I don't know why suddenly the narrative, you know, changed somewhat.
It's kind of funny how like folks act like Jamal Adams is like the only person that does what he does. That he's like this insult to safety play or something, like it's crazy to me. It's just like, I don't know. He's a versatile ass player. He's a good player. Like I don't get like the like people just come out of the woodwork to like talk to get their takes off on Jamal for some reason.
Well, yeah, the narrative is broken around him, and then sort of linking back to Ian's point about, you know, what would you summarize him as? Why it matters that he's a safety is because, you know, Ian is saying he is too small to really set the edge. Yeah, he is, because he's a safety. Like, he's a safety body. He's a DB body. Ultimately, he's not an inside linebacker, because an inside linebacker still, even with how light the NFL is getting, like, and just the game in general, an inside linebacker is still like 225, 230 pounds. Like, Adams ain't that. So then you can't suddenly start. Yeah, that's why positions still matter, even though football is moving to being more positionless, even if it is about matchups and plugging guys in the right spots. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. Call him a defensive weapon and enjoy the fact he can do a lot of things really well, and then be sad because he's badly hurt.
Poppy Me says, "Good day, lads. Given that nearly every commentator thought Monday was going to be a blowout, why hasn't there been more conversation about how the game was even that close to begin with? Love your work." I think it all kind of ties to the
well, thanks, Poppy.
Yeah, thanks, Poppy. But like, but like I think I think that really, you know, goes back to the whole red zone conversation though, and like, you know, because they convert on those visits to the red zone. We're feeling a lot different about this game.
Well, no, I reject. You're right. That is what it is. But
yeah,
how people can, you know, have their, you know, if buts, maybes fit their narrative, because Seattle had 4th and inches, or 4th and 1, but it should have been inches from Denver's 7. If they punch that in, well, suddenly that's a bit different because they go up by over 2 scores. No, it wasn't over 2. They'd gone up 14-3. And then they should have had 2 picks. Like, Adams dropped a pick, Diggs dropped a pick, and Denver scored on both those drives. Well, that looks a bit different, doesn't it? Denver's getting blown out. So I do agree, Ty. Like, people are fixating on the fact that Denver bottled it when they got down into Seattle's goal line with terrible clock management and draining the clock and getting blown off the football. But, you know, it's fun to play ifs and maybes. It's often the losing party where that sort of starts emerging from, right? Because it's like, damn, we could have done that. And usually in tight games, right? Because suddenly everyone's like, well, we just needed 3 more points and we'd have got this. And
well, and also,
how could we have got that?
Well, you think about it too, is like the Broncos were kind of gifted 3 points because Quandre Diggs dropped that interception in the end zone. That would have been that drive. Like, you know, so it goes both ways, right? Like you were saying, like the 4th and inches with Geno on the QB sneak and all that. Like, yeah. So, you know, but I think the question is more so just like, you know, why is there no talk about the Broncos not just them failing to just blow out the Seahawks when like that's what the expectations were. But I think like we are seeing that conversation, but it's all centered around like the missed opportunities of the red zone, and it's all very Broncos focused and very Broncos heavy. And it's like, well, if they just did this, like it wasn't really the Seahawks, it was the Broncos. The Broncos fumbled the bag basically, and it's like, well, it goes both ways though, right? Like guys made plays at the goal line, right? Like the Seahawks earned that, and Al Woods made a huge play and Uchenna Nwosu made a huge play. Like that can't be forgotten here, right? Like it's not just, oh, the Broncos bad, right? Like Seahawks also made some plays there. They had to do that in order to get out of those situations. And the
defense is monumental.
Yeah. I mean, that was Pete Carroll ball into a tee. We said that on Monday, right? And so, but yeah, at the end of the day, the Broncos, they're working through growing pains anyway, right? Russell Wilson, first start, because like he didn't play at all in the preseason. And you're just kind of dropping him into basically last year's personnel offensively in Denver. And, those guys haven't, like they've been practicing with him. They've been working out with him, constantly throughout the offseason, but that doesn't give you the information that you really need. You need to build chemistry. You need to work with one another in a game setting where you're playing against another team, and not against another team even in like a scrimmage or a preseason where guys are kind of playing half speed, or it's a bunch of backups trying to play for their NFL lives, etc. Like an actual real game where like stuff matters, and like Russ had a good game overall, but there was obviously the big mistakes, and
and him and Hackett as well. They need to figure out their working relationship a bit more. Like, I mean, Hackett, I think, saying afterwards about how he may have left a few too many audibles and options with Russ, and that's sort of what was going on down at the goal line with the sort of delay of games. There was too much on Russ's plate, basically. Like, and they just need to figure that out, and the whole clock management between them, getting the play in, how whoever's to blame there, we're not privy to that.
By the way, like, does Russ not have the green light to call timeout in that situation? Because that seems really sus to me for a quarterback that's making the money that he's making.
He was calling. He was able to call timeout. He was able to call timeout earlier. Like he was. The classic. Only certain quarterbacks in the NFL get to do it, where they turn to the official like nonchalantly when it's a 1 second and just tap the timeout sign. He did that earlier, so yeah, that is weird. That kind of shifting of blame.
Well, and that's why I said on Monday that I think that falls on the quarterback at the end of the day, especially when you're talking about an 11-year veteran making all that money. Like that's why I was talking about down at the goal line. Obviously, he didn't fumble those balls himself, but he contributed to those plays being out of whack, to those plays starting out in such a chaotic fashion. There was, an awkward handoff on one of them. I think it was the Gordon one where Al Woods blew up the play. Uchenna got in there with the with the strip, so that's at the end of the day, the clock management stuff to me is Russell 100%. Like, I get like the whole Nathaniel Hackett's a first time coach, this is his first game, etc. But I feel like that's kind of missing the point here in the conversation, that Russ should have been able to overrule him in that situation. Called timeout, saved 40 seconds or whatever on the clock, and then they could have talked about it. And I get maybe they wanted to run, Hackett wanted to run the clock down because they got to the 46, which is still stupid to me. That is just mind-blowingly dumb to me. So there's they're out of whack right now. We'll see. I mean, can you imagine if they lose to the Texans this week? Oh, brother. Oh,
Justin Simmons is hurt.
Ooh. When did he get hurt?
Apparently he hurt himself in the second half of the last game and played through it.
Oh, he played through it. Yeah. So Sunday is going to be very interesting. And then they play the 49ers the next week on Sunday night, I think. So those two games, if they end up starting like 1-2 or 0-3, ooh,
Yeah, because the back half of their schedule is actually nuts. Like it's so difficult. Like the first bit is a bit easier, but back half is very, very
Mhm.
tricky. And Russ doesn't enjoy second half of the seasons as much.
All right. So Nick asks, do you think how the 12s booed Russell Wilson might affect players wanting to come play for Seattle? Thanks, Nick. I've heard this a lot. The simple
Really?
answer is I've heard this a lot, dude.
Wow.
I've heard this a lot. Like, oh, because this is for some reason a story. They're asking Bobby Wagner in press conferences now, like what he thinks about it and all this stuff.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So like, it's all like that's the other thing, right? So there's obviously, going back to the national narrative conversation that we had at the start of the show. Like there's obviously like the praise for Gino and the praise for Pete and the praise
Yeah.
for the team in general, but there's also like for some reason this huge conversation, doesn't matter which station you tune into, about why did Seattle boo Russell Wilson? Oh, it's so classist. He won you a Super Bowl, blah 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 blah. And by extension, there's folks saying players are not going to want to come to Seattle now because you booed Russell Wilson. Okay, listen. It doesn't matter in the slightest. If you win football games, good football players want to come play for you. Simple as that. End of discussion. Like, that's it.
Yeah. Also, the perception of Russ, like I feel the recent stuff, like just in the media cycle, what's come out, all of that stuff, I feel people kind of understand why there was a bit more spice,
Yeah.
or at least rational people understand why there was a bit more spice to it. And I think players are very much aware that, yeah, Russ is Russ, right? He's a unique individual, but also it's kind of they know how it went down. And also, I more than that, like it's sport. Like players know that fans are fans. They don't really. I don't think they think too much into that. And like
Yeah.
when Russ's time comes, when he is retired, when he perhaps is enjoying Hall of Fame candidacy, then they'll put his jersey in the rafters and he'll get the hero's welcome, and I'm sure they'll do something for him where he probably raised the 12-man flag at some point. Unless something terrible happens in the 2026 matchup. But, I think this is probably the peak of how nasty it will get. And realistically, like being British and a soccer enthusiast, that was soft. Like I was like, there was a player called Luis Figo who is a very exciting Portuguese winger. There's a documentary actually on Netflix. This is the second soccer reference on the podcast. What is going on?
I'm proud of you, man. You're finding
I'm
ways
just
to interject it.
planting the flag,
Yeah.
And he moved from Barcelona to Real Madrid, and that is like, I mean, you just don't do that, right? Like that, there's not an American comparison. It just doesn't exist. Like it's just nuts. They hate each other. They're bitter rivals. It's like going to the dark side. So he went and did that, and then he came to play at Barcelona Stadium, and the fans were throwing bottles, throwing all kinds of stuff at him, and the Barcelona captain had to turn around to the fans and be like, "Please stop!" Like they were raining stuff down on him. And if you go back and look at the footage, someone threw a pig's head at him.
Oh wow. Yeah, so like, dude, this is nothing.
They
and like
booed
also,
him.
And like we've seen football fans do worse. We've seen them throw popcorn and cans.
Yeah, and I'm not. But by no means am I advocating for that. I'm just using that to illustrate the point that booing is fine. And do you know what? I'd have booed Russell Wilson. Griffin said he wouldn't, which is soft. I would have booed Russell Wilson if I
I'm
was
trying to
at the
compete
stadium.
too. Yeah. I'm a competitor.
You have to compete. Also, I'm noisy, so
yeah, yeah. No, I look. This might be the last time. I mean, there's a non-zero chance that this was the last meaningful game that Russell Wilson played at Lumen Field. because like
it's a 2026 game.
That's going to be in Denver, and then 2024, the Seahawks will play the same place finisher in the AFC West. They will host that game. So if the Broncos and the Seahawks do finish in the same place in 2023, then they would play the Broncos at Lumen Field.
Okay.
But other than that, the next time would be 2030, and that's 2 years after his current contract wraps up. So, like I said, non-zero chance that he's played his last meaningful game at Lumen Field. So that might be the only time. And look, the wound is so fresh, and for 5 whole months since the trade and the schedule finally dropped, with this game being week 1, this is all we have heard about for 5 months. And it's not really about what we've heard about. It's about the players having constantly just being hearing about this, being asked about this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's probably worn so tired of them. Like, especially like even for guys that are like good friends with Russ, like Penny Hart, DK Metcalf. I'm sure even them were tired of it and kind of wanted to beat Russ because of that as well. Like, so I think like, emotions are just running high, and fans feel slighted, and a lot of fans, they know what actually happened, right? Like they're able to put 2 and 2 together on what happened, how this transpired. Russ wanted out. Mark Rodgers was orchestrating things and everything. Like people, like most fans, I feel like realize that, at least, the fans that were in attendance at the game. And I think Russ deserves to be booed because Russ lied and he allowed Mark Rodgers to like gaslight the fan base. Like, yeah, like, and he did, like, he could have told Mark Rodgers to stop at any point in time. Like, I get it. I get why fans feel slighted. And for that reason, like you, Matty, I would have booed too if I was there. Like, and there will come a time. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate what Russ has done. And that doesn't mean that I don't, appreciate everything that he did over the last 10 years and for helping win a Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl in Seahawks, history. But, right now the wind is fresh, and he was the enemy on Monday. Like, he was the enemy. Like, I would boo the Jaguars. Like, like I don't.
That's the other thing. Like the first videos of them walking out the tunnel, I was like, yeah, they're being booed. They're the opposition team. Like, have you not seen an opposition team come out of the tunnel at Lumen Field? Like, obviously they get booed. Then it did get a bit more spicy, but I mean, it was pretty tame. I said I tweeted out, I've had more hostile curries.
Same, actually.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, with that, thank you for tuning in to the first ever like news roundup. We'll come up with a fancy name for this. Griffin may be able to join us for some of them, but he wasn't tonight. And then we'll be back tomorrow in your feeds and tomorrow live as well. It works both ways with the tape review. Please do like the video on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast. Give it a 5-star review on your podcast medium. Follow the podcast at Seattle Overload. Follow Ty at Dane Gonzalez. And follow me at Matty F. Brown. And
yeah.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys. And thanks for those of you who joined us live. Great questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good night, and go Hawks, and we'll see you tomorrow.